All right, we're going to go through all the other figures, all the other quadrilaterals this week. All right, so by the time we leave for break, we'll cover all the properties, proofs, everything along with all those other quadrilaterals. My fear is, as I introduce the properties, hopefully it's not too much for some of you. Not too much, because all we did last week was parallelogram, beautiful, 5 properties. That's all I needed to know. I'm going to increase those properties now because we are talking about different figures. All right. First one I want to talk about is the rectangle. All right. Remember, if you go back to, it's not the first page, but the first day we started talking about a parallelogram, do you remember the rectangle was below the parallelogram in the family tree? We remember that. Okay. The reason why it was below the family tree, yep, it's right out there, Grace. The reason why it was below the parallelogram in the family tree is because a rectangle has all those properties. Please don't forget that. All right. Everyone always thinks rectangle, right angles. There's a heck of a lot more than that. A heck of a lot more. Of the parallelogram. I'm not going to have you mark a diagram with it, but we all remember our parallelogram properties. Opposite sides congruent. Diagonals bisect each other. Rectangles got them. Plus some extras. Ready for the extras? All are right angles. That's one probably you are familiar with. So all angles are congruent in a rectangle because they're all right angles. Third one, the diagonals. We know they bisect each other, right? Because it's a parallelogram property. Well, they're also congruent to each other in a rectangle. Diagonals are congruent. Okay? So AC congruent to DB. I'm going to add a fourth property here, and you guys are going to come up with it. In a rectangle. I want you to discuss this, maybe not in your group, but maybe to yourself. Diagonals are congruent, right? And they also do what, since it's a parallelogram? Bisect each other, right? So they're congruent, and they cut each other in half. What should I know about AE, EB, EC, and also ED? Because the whole things are congruent, and I'm cutting them in half, what do you know about the 4 individual pieces? They're all congruent, all 4. That's not the property, though. What did I just form there? 4 triangles that are isosceles. So in a rectangle, diagonals form 4 isosceles triangles. Well, who cares about that? Here's why you're going to care when we start doing some algebra examples. What's across from these congruent sides? Darn right. So these angles down below are congruent. All right. Questions on the rectangle. So all parallelogram properties, all right angles, diagonals congruent, and the isosceles triangles. Anything there? Because now I'm going to go on. I'm not just going to do the rectangle today. We're also going to do the rhombus. Okay, the rhombus. Where was the rhombus located on the family tree? Also below the parallelogram, so it's got all the parallelogram properties. Okay, please don't forget about that. It's got all the parallelogram properties plus some extras. The extras, all sides are congruent in a rhombus. All sides congruent. And then maybe you would say, well, why isn't it a square then? Well, it doesn't have right angles. All right, that's the difference. Doesn't have right angles. What else do we know? Oh, this is huge. Diagonals bisect the angles. So ready? I'm just going to draw in one right now, diagonal AC. So these two here, these 2 angles, congruent. These 2 angles, congruent. I got a question for you, honors kids. Are all 4 congruent? And why? Are all four of those congruent? Why? Vincent? First of all, opposite angles are congruent, so all of angle D and all of angle C are congruent. And if I cut them in half, yep, the halves must be equal. Halves of equal quantities are equal, right? Okay, so yes, that is true. And if you want to draw in the other diagonal, which I'm going to have to now because diagonals are not congruent in like in a rectangle, but in a rhombus they are. Diagonals are perpendicular, so what can I put anywhere at one of these four angles? Right angles, yep. Diagonals are perpendicular, forms a right angle. So there's a lot going on, right? A lot going on. I do just want to bring your attention real quick to the definition of each. A rectangle. It's a parallelogram with, yeah, a lot of people think, I need all four, all four, all four. No, you don't. If you know it's a parallelogram, you just need one right angle. All right, anybody know why I don't need to go as far as four right angles? Because if I already have one right angle and it's a parallelogram, what do you know about the opposite angles? Congruent. And what do you know about the consecutive angles? Supplementary. So knowing one means they all have to be right angles. All right. And then a rhombus is a parallelogram with two consecutive. What do I mean by consecutive sides? Adjacent, two sides in a row. Two consecutive sides congruent. That's all. I don't need all four. Not needed. I just need a parallelogram with two sides in a row, two consecutive sides congruent to make it into a rhombus. Everyone all good with the rectangle rhombus before we go on to some algebra ones? No proofs until tomorrow. All right, let's talk algebra ones now. Here we go. I have four diagrams. Now take a look at the directions. That's huge, the first three words. For each parallelogram. So they're already a parallelogram. All four of these are already parallelograms. With the extra markings I put on, first of all, give me the best name for it. Because you can go probably further than calling it a parallelogram now. So look at example one. It's a parallelogram, and then I have this right angle symbol here. A parallelogram with one right angle becomes a rectangle. So I can call this a rectangle. Because it's a parallelogram with one right angle. And you don't need to explain it to me. That'll be tomorrow. And then part B, all right, help me find the measured angles. Will you use rectangle properties? Yeah, but you also probably use 180 degrees in a triangle. Alternate interior angles are congruent. Linear pairs are supplementary. You can use all of that stuff. And do you have to start with angle 1? No, you can start with any angle up there, whether it's numbered or blank. Anybody think it's easy to go with one of the angles right now? If I'm starting with 18, where can I go from here? Because I don't know if angle 1 is probably the easiest for me to find. I believe there's another angle up here that's very easy to find. To start off with. All right. Angle 3 should be 18. Some of you are wondering why. Again, it's a parallelogram. Opposite sides are parallel, which means the what type of angles are congruent? Alternate interior. So that's 18. All right. So that's 18. Where can I go from here now? I got 18 degrees for angle 3. A lot of different ways. Maybe you want to solve for a blank angle. I might go that way here. I may solve for a blank angle. Anybody want to chime in here? Where do you want to go? We could go 18 different paths. Hi, Jasmine. How are you? I'm doing well, too. Thanks for asking. Go ahead. Sure. This one down here? Okay, everyone take a look. This bottom one's isosceles, because we said the diagonals form 4 isosceles, which means these two are congruent, right? So that, what are you going to tell me? This one also has to be 18, and I think that leads us to angle 4 now, right? 180 degrees in a triangle. All right, somebody now, angle 4. Angle 4, here we go. Let's start it off. 7, angle 4. Look at that, huh? Karma. 144 degrees. Got it. I think we can go to angle 2 now. Because what do you know about angle 4 and angle 2 there, everybody? They are linear pairs, which make them supplementary. So what do you got for angle 2 now? 22? 36? And now that I know that's 36, I think, maybe not. We'll see. How you getting to angle 1? Hey, don't think this is not, 180 degrees and that's a right angle there. That's part of the angle. All right, so don't pull that business. The whole angle's 90. I can still get to angle 1 though. A lot of different ways. Angle 1, let's hear from some people. 24, angle 1. It is 72 degrees. Anybody want to know how we got there at all? Because we could have got there a couple different ways. One way was, okay, if that's 18, that's 18. And what does 18 and angle 1 add up to since it's a rectangle? The angle I just measured is 18 and angle 1. They measure up to 90 degrees. It's a rectangle. Everyone all good? Questions? Okay, moving. Number 2. It's a parallelogram. I marked all 4 sides congruent. That turns it into a better name of 26. That is a rhombus. Look back or look above if you need to remember your rhombus properties. Wow, I think, honestly, we should be able to just fly by these. I know you don't know your properties down pat yet, but trust me, 1, 2, 3, and 4 should no calculator needed. No calculator needed. Anybody want to start with any of those angles? 9, any of those angles you want to start with? Yep. Angle 4 is 59. Property. Diagonal. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead. I won't steal your thunder. Diagonals bisect the angles in a rhombus. Next angle you can find. 14. Next one you want to find? Angle 1 would also be 59 because alternate interior angles are congruent. Angle 2, angle 3 now. It's a property. It's a property. It's a rhombus property. Here you go, 16. 90. Diagonals are perpendicular. I won't ask anybody, but angle 3 will also be 90. Diagonals are perpendicular. The power of knowing those properties. And I'm not expecting you to know anything right now, but I'm just showing you the power of knowing them. All right, honors kids, here's 3. I did not mark the diagram at all. There's no right angles. There's no congruent hash marks out there, but it's still something. What do you know it is right now? It's a parallelogram. That's not what I'm going to write down, though. Because you know it's a parallelogram, you could find a couple more of those angles and then turn it into either a rectangle or a rhombus. So maybe you want to start finding the angles first before you name it. It is a parallelogram. What angle would you like to be marked here? 19. What can you find just knowing it's a parallelogram? Angle 1? Oh, whoa. Okay. Which one would you like to take there, Sinead? 60. Just by knowing it's a parallelogram, how'd you know it was 60? Yep. Alternate interior angles are congruent. Lines are parallel in a parallelogram, so that tells me angle 1 is 60. Can we stop right there? What's this angle measure up top here? 90. Parallelogram with a right angle makes it a rectangle. All right, go ahead. I'll call in some other people. 2, I'm just going to do 2 right now. That's 30. And then you guys can find 3 and 4 for me. Diagonals form 4 isosceles triangles. All right, either 3 or 4. What do you got for me? Oh, 20. What do you got for me? 3 is 60. That it is, like multiple different ways. All right, this is isosceles, so across from the sides are congruent angles. And then angle 4 would be, hey, 26. 30 degrees. Guys got any issues? Can you just tell me what 4 is before I let you go find the 4 angles? What's 4? Oh, okay. I don't need to call on anybody, I guess. Rhombus. And then go right ahead, take about 30 seconds, find angles 1, 2, 3, and 4. Teddy, you got that back there? Yeah. Great. All right, let's hear what you got, and then ask any questions if you're not sure where 1 came from. Absolutely, ask away. 23, your call. Which one you want to go first? Number 2 is 68. Great job. Okay, let's keep it going. Next angle you want to find for me. 11, next angle you want to find? Which one? 3 is 68. Diagonals bisect the angles. All right, I got 1 and 4 left for somebody. 6. 4 is 90. Easy one, right? Diagonals perpendicular. Ooh, and then how about 1 that's hanging out all by itself over there? 7, what do you got for me? 22 degrees. Any issues on those? Want to see how they were found? Going? We're all right? Because I'm getting off the angles now and going to sides. All right, 2 more. HIJK, rectangle, HJ, IK, find the value of X and the length of each diagonal. And I say draw the diagram because I don't know if I'm talking about sides or diagonals here, and it matters. Where's my rectangle? There it is. Quick review. How do I label any quadrilateral? Clockwise or counterclockwise? Don't jump diagonally. Do not jump diagonally. It will throw off this entire problem. HIJK. What is HJ in this problem? Oh, that's a diagonal. All right, better start looking at the properties. And then IK is also a diagonal. So if we need to look back, diagonals of a rectangle. What do you want to throw out at me here? Diagonals of a rectangle. 1. They are congruent in a rectangle. Yes, so that tells me 3x plus 5 equals 5x minus 9. I'll let you guys go to work on the algebra. Find x and then the length of each diagonal, which hopefully you come out with the same value since they are congruent. to get x equals 7. We're all good? And then what was the length of each diagonal? 26 units. Yep. All right, I'm going to challenge you now for this last one. Let's go to the rhombus. So rhombus properties running through your head, looking back if we need to. GI, what's GI here? That's a diagonal here. So maybe I'm going to start thinking about properties of the diagonal of a rhombus. What is FH? Also a diagonal, and I need to find a side. Does it matter which side I find? Why does it not matter which side I find here? Because they're all congruent in a rhombus, so it does not matter. So let's start talking about labeling this diagram and then hopefully coming up with some algebraic way of finding a side. All right, so start. What do you know about diagonals of a rhombus? Anything you want to throw at me here? Diagonals of a rhombus, so we can start labeling this beast. They bisect each other. How's that helpful? Well, ready? If GI is 8, what's each piece? 4 and 4. All right, I can at least label that. FH is 6, so each piece, 3 and 3. All right, I'm still not anywhere. I got to get to a side. Keep going. More properties of the diagonals of a rhombus. Orion, more properties. Never mind. Oh, I can't do that unless I have what type of triangle? They're perpendicular, right? Which means they form, everyone agree, they form right angles. And he kind of stole the thunder there, but now that I know that these are all right triangles and I know 2 of the sides, how can I find the third? Pythagorean theorem. So just get that in your mindset. Rhombus, I can use Pythagorean theorem a lot. So 3 squared plus, is this 4 a leg or a hypotenuse? That's a leg plus 4 squared. And what's the side acting as? A leg or the hypotenuse? That's the hypotenuse equals c squared. This is a pretty famous one, but 9 plus 16, 25 equals c squared. So one side's going to be a length of 5. Another type of problem I always like to ask is, what's the perimeter? How do you get 20? All sides are congruent. Yes, all sides are congruent. Okay. Here's what I need right now. You're going to have Chromebooks. If you have them, open up to the answer key to tonight's homework so you can check it as you go along, because I'm not going to put it up here. I'm going to start calling you guys up one by one to discuss a recommendation for next year. Also, the recommendation piece is only going to be like a minute. The other piece is going to be really, I think it's a good time right now to talk about how you're doing in class. All right, the recommendation piece, I really, here's what I think for next year. All right, but I'm going to start talking to you about what I think, how you're doing this year, and also this midterm that's coming up. Okay, because it's going to be an honors level midterm, and it's going to be a beast, and I'm hoping it's not going to bury some of you. All right, so we're going to talk about that. You can move around, work whoever you want with, because I do need it to be slightly noisy in here. All right, so I really don't want whatever I'm talking about with individuals to be heard. So move around, work with whoever you'd like to work with, please. Okay. Last thing, I told you this last week. I am recommending to you what I think you'll be successful for next year. I do not care about how popular or whatever you are in front of your friends. Okay, I am recommending whatever you think you are going to be successful for. So please come up with an honest mindset. All right.